Bonjour, my name is Kaija, and today we will be learning how to bead a medicine wheel pin. First things first, we're going to make sure that we have the paper over the pellin, and then we're going to thread our needle and sew all four sides down before we even start the beading process. This will also be a good time to start soaking your sweetgrass that are provided in the kits. For this part, you will only need just a short to medium length of thread, as we're just threading down the sides. But once you cut your string, you can now make a couple of knots at the end, and then on the other side, you will add your needle, and then we can begin to secure all four sides down. Now that you have threaded your needle, we will poke our needles from the back to the front, starting at whichever side you'd like to start from. I'm starting from the right, as you can see, and we will continue to do this process until we've hit all four sides. And if you're confused, just continue watching and you'll see how I secured all four sides down. After securing all four sides down, we will then now make a knot at the back and then cut the string and then begin with the beading. The reason why we secure all four sides down, or that I do it anyways, is so that it's secure. It's not going to move around, it's not going to slide around when we're beading. It will stay in place, as you can see what I'm doing here. Alright, next step is to rethread your needle again. This time you're going to be needing a medium to long thread, as we are going to begin beading. Usually with circles or anything circular, we can start from the center and work our way outwards, but because I am going to be following the outline, as you can see that I'm pointing out here, I'm actually going to not start from the middle. And I do start from the middle in the beginning, but then I realize, oh, that's not going to work out, because I might as well just do a straight line across. with beads rather than stopping myself halfway, just so that it might be straighter rather than all crooked. So you can choose any spot to start, and if you're not doing the outline, you don't have to follow this. But if you are doing the outline, I chose to go in between the white and the black. And the way I was taught was to add as many beads as you can onto your thread that aligns with the outline that you're doing, or the outline part that you're doing. So right now I'm going to be taking out my black beads because the outline is black. I'm going to make the outline black as well with the beads that were provided in our kits. So with the way that I am beading, I always make sure that I push down the beads so that they're aligning with each other, and it also helps me understand how many more beads I need to add to my thread to complete the outline part that I'm doing. I would also like to mention that with this style of beading, it's better to add not enough beads, if that makes sense, than to add too many beads. So what I mean by that is, as you see here, I could have not added that extra bead because I feel like when I tack all these beads down, we're going to go back every 2 beads and we're going to sew it down. And by sewing it down that way, it does create a little space in between, which then could possibly bunch up my beads and then they won't look straight. And I like to have things go smoothly rather than it bunching up. But honestly, it's a learning process, and everything that we do is a learning process. So as you can see, I did poke it down on the opposite side. I'm going to be coming up through with my needle from the back to the front, and we're going to attack the needle and thread every 2 beads. So you're going to pull your string through really tight, as you can see, and then we're going to make sure that the thread goes in between the 2 sets of beads right there, as you can see, and we're going to poke down on the opposite side that you came up from and pull it through, and this way it will actually tack it down like you did with your paper. And we're going to continue that process every 2 beads until you've gone back to your starting point. So in my experience of beading, I realized that you really do need to take your time beading. Beading takes a lot of patience, and it's very peaceful to do, but once you start going fast or you start not taking your time to do things, you have a problem like this, where it gets knotted up or bunched up, or the thread is actually just not that great, and it does that too. So just always, take time to do your beading. Don't rush through it. Otherwise, if you do and it gets knotted up, sometimes you get angry or heated about it, and that's when you need to take a step away from your beading, because we just want good thoughts, good vibes only through our process of beading. So now that we have completed the one outline part, we can now move on to this part, and I am going to only add enough beads that align with the outline that's in between the yellow and the white. So I didn't finish the outline completely, but that's okay, because I'm just going to be doing the yellow part of the medicine wheel, then I will move on to the red part, and I can show you a trick on how you're able to tell how many beads need to go on to the next line as you're moving closer and closer to the circle's middle. After figuring out how many beads need to go on my thread, I will poke down my needle and pull it tight as you can see here, and then I will proceed with the steps that we did to do with the outline, and we will be going back every 2 beads, tacking it down, sewing it down. I also use the outline as a guide to help with the curve. Now that we're halfway through, we can now begin to take away the paper and cut your pin. But before we do that, we're going to take a look at the back. So you see the amazing work that you did. It's beautiful. I love it. And as you can see for mine, I do have a little, little extra threads happening, and I need to be sure that I'm not going to be cutting those when I cut the circle. Before we tear the paper away, we will need to grab our pair of scissors and cut where we secured down on the 4 sides on the outside. So once you cut those, it will be so much easier to rip away the paper, because I didn't do that before and it was just really hard to actually take all the paper off. But because this is a circle, it's going to be really easy to tear away. So after we have ripped away the paper, it is now time to move on to cutting the circle out. And in order to do this, we have to make sure that we're not cutting our threads. Normally, I would use the beads as a way to guide me to cut the circle out, but because I have so many loose threads or threads that I didn't pull hard enough, I am going to just cut out like a bigger circle. Now you can see how much pellin there is left to cut. The next step is adding the leather. Now, I use a pencil to trace out the circle. It's recommended that you use pencil, never use marker or pen as the ink bleeds into the leather. After drawing the outline, we can now cut the circle from the leather. We are in the final stages of completing the pin. What is left is that we have to add the pin to the leather, add the sweetgrass that we've been soaking this whole time, and also sewing the sweetgrass onto the edge. So this is what the sweetgrass should look like after soaking it for so long, and we're going to be taking a couple of strands or more. It's up to you to use as our edging for our pin. So I accidentally got lost and forgot about adding the pin. So please add the pin before you start adding the sweetgrass into your pin. Again, please use pencil, but if you can't, pen is fine. We will be marking all 4 sides of the pin, and the way I do it as shown, I'm going to be connecting the 2 lines with a line in the middle, and this is where I'm going to be cutting or making the little slit for the pin to go through. Once you have cut the little slits, you are now going to add your pin into the leather. And by doing that, you're going to unlock the pin as best as you can. I'm struggling with it, and it can be confusing sometimes. But the pin that I have actually locks it in place, which means that it won't go anywhere. Now you're going to poke the pointy end through first, and that should give you enough room to put your pin through the leather by pushing it through on both sides and adjusting it that it's fitting properly within the leather. So we're now at the final part. Yay! This means that we're one step closer to finishing your beautiful sweetgrass medicine pins. And in order to do that, we will be grabbing our thread. And as you can see, I'm going to be using sinew, which is a little bit harder to work with than thread, but patience is really key in this part. For this part, we're going to make sure that we have like a medium to long length of thread, and we're going to tie one end of the thread and tie it into 2 to 3 knots. Now that you have threaded your needle and tied a knot at the other end, we are going to start and begin by going from the back of the wheel of the pelin, and we're going to be doing it at the edge. So before we actually tie into the leather, we're going to start in the middle so that the tail of this thread can be inside. Or you can cut it as well. Cutting it's better so that it doesn't stick out and get in the way. We can finally now add the sweetgrass, which I actually tried braiding, but didn't successfully do, but that is okay. It's gonna look beautiful regardless. I will be doing a whip stitch style of threading the edge, and so the way to do this is going from the back of both the leather and the pelin, but also staying on the edge of the pin and bringing my needle upwards. And because I am working with real leather, I'm using this flat-headed tool that I don't know the proper name to. And yeah, this is what I'm going to be doing. So I bring the sinew over and I poke from the back to the front at the edge and continue that process all the way through. While you're doing this, always make sure that you're lining your sweetgrass up with the outline and adjusting it in any way that you need to. And pulling that thread tight so that it's secure. as we get into the end, if your sweetgrass is too long, you can go ahead and cut a piece of it off and just continue with the whip stitching. After finishing the edge sewing, we can now tie it off, and by doing so, we just poke our needle from the front to the back. Make sure you pull it tight, and from that we will make about 2 to 3 knots at the back of it. Now, after making the knots, go ahead and cut the string as close as you can to the knot, and we're finished! Woo! We are finally done our beautiful sweetgrass medicine pin. Miigwech for watching this video and beading your medicine pin with me.